Well, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Between the Sets. I'm Drake. I'm here today with a boy that I used to work out with in Air Force when I was in tech school. So I'm super, super happy to have him on. He has a ridiculous amount of knowledge when it comes to hypertrophy training, strength training, all sorts of things that are related to that world. He's a super strong dude, and I'm very excited to talk to him about his fitness journey here today because I feel like he's going to shed a lot of light on some stuff that will help you guys if you're looking to get strong or if you're looking to put on more muscle and all that. So without further ado, my boy Kuba, go ahead and take it away. Give a little introduction about yourself and your fitness journey up until this point.
Intros. I'm not the best at intros, but let's see what we can do here.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so my name is Kuba Kozinski, and I was born in Poland in 1994. I moved to the U.S. With my mother in 1999, and I grew up in Michigan. And I grew up without a father, so that was a bit of a challenge in terms of discovering who I want to be or what I want to do.
Sure.
So in high school, I ended up kind of accidentally falling in love with weightlifting. And
Yeah.
I started weightlifting because I saw my oldest friend, he was a grade above me, get super strong, super big. You know,
Yeah. Right.
And nice and everything. And so I wanted that too, super bad.
Yeah.
So I started watching videos on YouTube of people lifting.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, I was inspired by West Side Barbell.
Okay, yeah.
The Louis
I remember that. That kind of comes back to when we started, it wasn't like right when we met, but I remember you still like talking about conjugate method and all that kind of stuff, like the very first time we met.
Yeah, and that's what I was doing up until I discovered the works of Dr. Mike Israetel, Jared Feather, Renaissance Periodization, those people, which really helped me expand my knowledge of training methodically in an intelligent fashion to bring about optimal growth and optimal training.
Right.
In the sense that rather than just trying to increase my peak strength, I had to increase my work capacity, my muscle mass, so that ended up taking my training from lifting heavy all the time to increasing my volume a lot, backing up off the weights. And that was when I truly saw, when I began to saw exponential growth.
In terms of your muscle mass.
Exactly.
Okay.
Muscle mass, work capacity.
Yeah.
And ultimately that carried very well over into peak maximal strength as well. Because Louis Simmons, when I used to watch all of his videos, he used to say, a pyramid, mathematically speaking, is only as tall as its base. And so when we parallel this concept into weight training, it's like the greater your work capacity is, you'll ultimately have a higher peak, potential peak for greater strength output.
Right.
So it's important to structure your programming in that fashion and increasing your work capacity, building a larger muscle, and then teaching it to produce more force later, and ultimately optimize its neural output for maximum strength. So.
And that was kind of what you had stumbled on. Was that in the high school time frame still, or was that the Louis Simmons part?
The Louis Simmons part was in high school, and then not until about me getting out of high school, about a year after that, I stumbled upon Renaissance Periodization with Dr. Mike. And then I started watching and researching tons of articles and videos on how to program. And then once I started incorporating those scientific strength principles into my own routine, that's when I finally started seeing these huge bumps in growth.
The results that you were pretty much looking for before, basically.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
And the thing is, with the heavy training, it did bring about muscle hypertrophy to a degree, but with the higher reps increased the work capacity and muscle size a lot more than than heavy weightlifting, because on one end of the spectrum, when you're lifting super heavy, maybe 1 to 3 rep max, you will see adaptations in primarily neural output, and then you'll see minimal adaptations in muscular strength, or muscular size rather. And when you're trying to increase your work capacity and build bigger muscle, it relies on a completely different energy system, which is glycogen based.
Okay.
And so you have to tailor and structure your programming according to what your goal is. And take into account phase potentiation, which is one of the scientific principles of gaining strength.
Yeah, and he talks about that's a lot in the Renaissance periodization stuff, I think, because I've read on it as well, and they mention that quite a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
So it makes sense. No, but that's cool though, because it was probably like it probably felt good, like stumbling upon that, and and then it finally was a switch that clicked, and you were like, this was the key that I was essentially looking for the whole time.
Exactly. And some of the main drivers of those principles were, so in rank of importance, specificity, overload, fatigue management, SRA, so stimulus recovery adaptation curves, and then phase potentiation. So specificity would be in regards to what task are you trying to get good at? What are you trying to improve?
Right.
So if you want to increase your 1 rep max on a bench, you better be lifting near or at your 1 rep max on a bench. Any deviation away from that, 5 reps, 8 reps, 10 reps, or even switching up your grip, aside from competition grip to close grip, you're becoming less specific.
Right.
In terms of structuring your programming, typically you would want to pick those variations that would strengthen your weak points. So if you're getting stuck halfway in your bench press and you're having trouble with a lockout, then typically you would want to take a mesocycle or two, a period of training, to where you would work on tricep strength, but you would use that through not doing tricep extensions necessarily. You could use those as assistance work, but you would do close grip bench for reps of 8, 10, 12, and then increase that work capacity that would ultimately carry over into your 1 rep max later. Then overload, of course, everybody knows you have to progressively overload over time.
I think a good amount of people do, but there's a lot of people that also don't understand that as well.
Yeah, that's true. So in terms of overload, you want to increase the volume over time, specifically for muscular hypertrophy, getting bigger. And so volume would be defined as sets times reps times weight. So ultimately you want to be doing more work over time. And over the course of a mesocycle, a periodized length time of training, let's say you have a mesocycle for 4 weeks, we can use a simple bench press as an example. You would want to increase your sets, start off at 3 sets. Or if you're doing 2 sessions in the same week, you can have 6 sets total on bench, but the next week you want to accomplish 8 sets. Third week, 10 sets. Fourth week, 12 sets. Until you walk and escalate through the spectrum of fatigue, which is the third principle that I'm going to be leading up to. And then you want to deload, give your nervous system a break, realize those adaptations that have manifested, and then ultimately do the same thing again, perhaps with a different exercise or different variation or curriculum.
Yeah.
And so that's really important too.
Yeah, it's funny because it's really interesting when you will just have candid conversations with people, and maybe it's like people you don't even know, or you overhear them talking about like benching and like getting stronger, and then you'll hear like the very layman's way of going about it, so to speak. And then you just went through this whole progress of like this whole deal of like what it really comes down to. So it's kind of funny, like when you hear that kind of stuff, because you'll be often in the sidelines being like, oh man, if you only knew. You know what I mean? Like if you only knew.
You've been there before and you understand what these people are going through, but I'm never the one to go in the gym and be like, hey, you should be doing this and that.
Well, yeah. Like it has to be really egregious. Like for me to do something like that, it has to be really egregious. Like something that's like really like blatantly like, I don't know what, but I think I've done it like one time where I'm like, this person's gonna kill themselves within the next 5 minutes if I don't say something, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, because I remember that too, like being super young and being in the gym, and it's that one guy that comes over. I mean, granted, the guy was huge or whatever, and then he was like, hey man, like this and this, and I'm like, I'm good. You know?
Yep.
But
yeah, it's like, all right, whatever. Yeah, screw you. I'm just gonna go about my workout.
yeah, for sure.
Doing whatever I read in Muscle
Dude,
magazine.
so true.
Doing these boatloads of volume that you can't recover from, and then ultimately you stay looking the same month after month, year after year, and
which is good though for the market. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because then that's what keeps that person there, so to speak. You know what I mean? Because they're someone that in the old days, it used to be maybe more so subscribed to that magazine or whatever the case. They just spent years and years just trying to find the answer, you know, trying to find the answer. They didn't necessarily want to give them the real answer, because then you wouldn't really need a lot of the products and the subscription and so on and so forth, you know?
And the flip side to that is these massive bodybuilders that are typically using performance enhancing drugs build up to that work capacity, build up to that muscular size to where they can actually handle those volumes, and those volumes are necessary to bring them to the next level, because you have to keep continuously increase the volume over time in order to bring about new and novel adaptations. Yeah,
it's kind of funny if you think about it that way. It's like it would be similar to, you know, like a Beethoven or a master music composer. You know what I mean? Like having a magazine where they're like, all right, here are these master music composers, and they're doing this and working at this level and writing these symphonies and all this other stuff. And then they're like, all right, now you go do exactly what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like that's like the concept of that is crazy, but that is definitely the way that it was fed to us, you know, like you said. And not only that, is just like, yeah, they had performance enhancing drugs, you know, they had the work capacity on top of a little special sauce, you know. And we'll probably get back to that in a later question. So you definitely have a wealth of knowledge. What so far has been your proudest accomplishment throughout that?
Well, I really, really do not like to boast, and I am.
But no, hey man, like your thing that you kind of like the chip on your shoulder, you know what I'm saying? Like that you were like, hell yeah, dude, I did that. That's dope.
All right, fair enough.
You know?
Well, some of my best lifts. Well, I'm going to name two instances.
Yeah.
That draw the conclusion and portray how switching up my training and working on my work capacity has improved and taken my training to the next level. So I was proud of, let's say, my bench press before I had researched the scientific principles of strength training, and I ended up doing a touch and go 370 pound bench press. I think I was like 20 years old before the cusp of learning about Dr. Mike Israel.
Oh yeah.
Then I had, I don't know, I used to do a bunch of box squats with bands and accommodating resistance, and I only had like a raw squat of 405 at the time. And I wasn't necessarily doing that correctly. And then the deadlift was like a max of 415.
Yeah.
And those were my more proud accomplishments back then. But after I started incorporating these principles, that's when I started to see real changes here.
Yeah, clicks. You're like, wait, what's going on here?
Changes for me, yeah. And so I want to say in 2018, I had my greatest weightlifting accomplishments with a 315 for 10 bench press. This is not peak, so when you go through a peak and realize, you know, the peak, the analogy that I made before, ultimately it's going to be more than a projected 405 or 425. It's going to be 455 or something of that nature. So 315 for 10, and the squat was a 455 for 8. High bar, if anybody gives a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the deadlift, I ended up pulling a 545 for 10, and I think I have these on the Instagram page. unfortunately, I didn't record the squat.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I remember some of those lifts that you recorded that were pretty crazy. And it was funny because I was like, I remember the tech school days, dude.
Yeah.
You know,
Good times.
those are good times for me. I loved that time frame. And you were there before me. Yeah, for a good amount of time, I think, right? A few weeks, maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah,
maybe it was like 2 weeks.
For terribly long.
No, it wasn't, because for the most part we stayed. We were there for the whole like time, you know, together for the most part until you left. So it was a good time. That was definitely, for me, it was my favorite time in the Air Force.
Was it?
Yeah, it was my favorite time.
I could probably say the same thing. You know, just being here for a longer time, being in North Dakota for 5 years, my entire enlistment, I've had more time to.
Oh yeah.
5 years out in Biloxi, Mississippi, then
it was just
had an even better time. You know, that was just a small glimpse of the 7 months that I was there.
Yeah. It's definitely overshadowed at this point, but because like for me, it was just like I went there and then I met all you guys, and I was just it was basically just a college party.
Yeah, right.
Like that's all it was. And all we did is just like we went to school for a little bit, boom, right to the gym, and then on the weekends we partied. Like that's all it was. It was so funny. It was good times. But yeah, those are great accomplishments, and I'm sure it felt really good too, because a lot of those strength things that you found, it was based off your own digging and research. You know what I mean? That led to that. Because you found it. You know what I mean? You didn't necessarily go. It just probably felt a little better because you went and found the answers yourself and then applied them. You know, which is pretty.
Yeah,
cool.
and that's the thing. I think if you want something bad enough, you're going to get it. And I just wanted to get bigger and stronger so bad because I was so inspired by West Side Barbell, seeing these behemoths of men benching, you know, 700, 800, 900 pounds, which of course they weren't raw, but seeing all those plates was
still
very inspiring. I was like, yeah, I just want to do that. I want to be like that.
Right.
That's what drove me towards that.
It makes sense. As far as being through all of this, your consistency has probably been pretty spot on for the most part, right? Through your journey.
Yeah. Very consistent.
Yeah. It's kind of like
by my passion to just want to improve constantly in a physical way, you know.
It kind of reminds me of it reminds me of Dr. Mike Israetel, just because that one documentary where he goes into the explanation of like how to a degree it's almost like a sickening like mentality in a way, and he's just like it's very methodical, and just like it reminds me too of like Arnold Schwarzenegger and stuff, and like the mentality in which some of these guys approached their ability to get to where they were. Where this was in Pumping Iron when he talked about how his dad died, you know, and he didn't go to his dad's funeral because he had a show.
Yeah, that's the kind of dedication that it takes.
You know what I mean? I'm like, holy shit.
When you're at that level.
Yeah, you know, dude. It is 100%. You know, it is. There is that threshold that separates, you know, a normal average, so to speak, person, and that's why I feel like you don't really see in a commercial gym you don't see too often. You see a little more now because of the information that's there, but you don't see a whole lot of dudes comfortably benching 315 for reps.
And a lot of times it's with sloppy form, and they're lifting their ass up off the
correct
bench, and, you know, just kind of like doing the whole crucifix motion with only their chest, and they're risking their shoulder and all this good stuff. And I'd be far more impressed by someone that could bench it once or twice with clean form than someone that's just doing form with 5 or 6 reps.
Yeah.
To the initial guy.
Yeah, you know? And that's what I've always thought. There's definitely a reason why you don't see that a lot, because there's a lot of variables that come into it, and then there's this level of like not only just those variables, but this level of dedication that you have to get to in order to maintain that too, you know, and to progress all those other things. And then you have all the other things that come into it, whether it's your life, your work, relationships, different other things that come into that is really hard for people to manage altogether, you know.
Exactly. Big mental game for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's a big piece of it. So have you had anything though that does at least give you a little issue with consistency, or is it stuff that pulls you out of it, or is that really where you find your safe space in terms of like mental health and all that?
So I definitely use the gym as a form of therapy, which comes second to trying to become a better version of myself, and merely the physical aspect, but which is driven by the mental aspect of that as well. And that mental aspect of consistency and discipline will definitely leak into other things that you do in life. So if you can form enough discipline and consistency in one thing and dedicate yourself to a single craft, you can definitely do it to something else, especially with something like making money. You know, you can open up a business and continuously work.
Yeah.
And in that sense, to accomplish a lot of things.
It is. There are a lot of similarities, man. There's a lot of similarities. There really is. And I found that out with just the gym and then career stuff. I was like, well, and that's kind of where, in a way, to some degree, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna pause some things, maybe fitness wise. I'll spend some time over here career wise, and back and forth. But yeah, you're gonna sacrifice some of those things. You know what I mean? It would be very difficult to become an expert at all of them. There are people that do pretty good at it for sure. But yeah, there is a lot of things that are similar to that. And like you said, with the business, there's a lot of the groundwork stuff that we're familiar with in the fitness part that you really have to do in the business part. And it is intimidating, right? Because again, just like going to the gym in the beginning, it is kind of intimidating, and then it's also, it is work, it's work that you really got to put in order to understand it. Even just for me, for myself, like I find that it's good, even though I'm doing a lot of these interviews, it's good because when I would do one interview and then I would put a whole bunch of work into it, get exhausted, and then I would wait to do another one, I would have to relearn the stuff that that I was already learning when the first time. So now by continuously putting in that work, I'm getting better at producing the videos, editing them. The stuff stays in my memory, so I'm more efficient. It's very, very familiar, in terms of that. Just like the gym, right? If you go in there and then you don't go for a few months, you're going to be sore. You're going to have to relearn some things again, so there's definitely a lot of things that you can apply to from the gym and be successful at if you put that dedication in.
Yep. Since first joining the Air Force almost 6 years ago, to be honest, I haven't had trouble with consistency in the gym. Yeah. But I have more so deviated from my diet, and I would kind of yo-yo between cutting, getting lean, and then once I was trying to build back up the mass, I would put on a little bit more fat than yo-yo in that sense. But as far as consistency in the gym, these 5 or 6 weeks that we've been on quarantine because of the virus was the longest I've ever gone without going to the gym. And even at that, I have some weights in my garage.
Yeah.
Trying to use, I would use my buddy's tires. I would lay 2 tires.
You're just like out there, you're like, what can I lift, man? What can I lift over here?
I have an easy bar. Yeah, I have an easy curl bar. And then I would load it up with weight and then kind of, stand up and then shimmy the weight up to my hip, and sit down on the tire, and then fall in between where the 2 tires meet in the middle. Hot for my elbows to come back to get 4 range of motion.
Yeah.
I'll try to do benching in that way and throw it back behind my head. Like, it can only work so much, but
yeah,
what I can over here.
Yeah, that's what it's about, man. It brings me back to it's kind of like I had a buddy and we would do that. Like, we figured out ways, like in his room that he had to like bench, we put buckets up and all this stuff. It's taking us back to that stuff for sure. And then for me, I'm like, oh great. As soon as this broke out, they sent me to New York. So I was like, hey, because I have my gym, but they sent me to New York, so I'm like over here like chilling, but I'm like, whatever. However,
when I first started weightlifting, I wanted to get big so bad, and I didn't have a car in high school. So my mom's boyfriend happened to have a bench press with
Oh, okay, cool.
and so we didn't grow up, super rich.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a small room at home, and to make that sacrifice of wanting to get bigger and stronger so bad, I moved my bed and whatever else was in my room, and I only had my bench press in my room.
Oh, yeah.
So I slept on the floor next to it on top of a blanket.
Hell yeah.
And then the side of where the bench press was closer to my closet, it would be all like torn up on the side because I really had any room. But that's when I first started benching. My first 5 workout out there.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, because this also goes back to, again, what reminds me of the similarity that you have. You have that next level edge is when we were in Keesler, I think it was on decline too, and it was like 315 or something on decline, and then like you went for it and you missed it, and you were pissed off. Like pissed off. And then I'm like, dude, it's okay, man, you'll be good, you'll get it next week, dog. And you were like, the rest of the day you were fucking mad. I was like, okay. But it was a good thing though, because that is really what I feel like, that's that it factor that takes you and took you to that next level, really is.
Yep. Whatever is worth attaining, you're definitely going to fail several times, in which I have failed over and over and over the course of my weightlifting life. And I've told myself so many times that I've wanted to quit and I'm going to quit, but I end up finding myself back in the gym trying again and again.
Yeah.
Coming back a little bit stronger and more resilient each time, switching up variables and trying different things in order to succeed. And ultimately, it did work out.
Yeah.
Because I wanted it bad enough. So.
What are some gripes that you have with the fitness community as a whole? Because I'm sure there's a good amount, man. There's got to be. And it could be anything. It could be from CrossFitters to yoga to whatever whatever things that kind of grind your gears about.
No CrossFitters, huh? So one thing that I particularly don't like seeing in the gym, I full on support anybody that's trying to become a better version of themselves in the gym and all that good stuff. But I feel like there's a lot of ego that's being driven by people. And to quote Louis Simmons, don't have, $100 weightlifting shoes for a 10-cent squat. And so oftentimes I'll see these people that post these videos that look very professional, but they're just like doing all these like wacky pussified workouts, and they look the same like month after month, year after year. Don't incorporate any real structure or periodization within their training, and it's like, man, your content is good, but like, where's your training at? It's like,
yeah.
Are you doing this for egotistical purposes, or are you actually trying to get better, or like,
what's the thing there? What is
there is a lot of ego involved in that. And then, sorry girls, women, terrible. Okay? And men aren't any better because
that's true.
you feed into this stuff, those Instagram
we definitely perpetuate it.
Get the yoga pants, and then make your ass look big and all this good stuff. That's a little bit aggravating too, because it taints it gives a bad sense of dogma into what resistance training and fitness truly is. And it gives it like this bad image, for people that are egotistical and obsessed with themselves. But there is a large group of people out there that really do love the grind and do want to become better and become better versions of themselves, and actually help other people too. So.
Right. Yeah, I think that is a big one as far as that, like the ego part that is driven in the fitness.
Doing these air squats with your dog, get the fuck out of here.
With your dog. Yeah, for sure. And then just the whole the snake oil stuff too kind of sucks,
Oh, supplement industry?
Well, just like whatever it is. Yeah, supplement industry, and yeah, pretty much, because I mean a majority of it is all snake oil in that sense,
Yeah, and that's the thing. Everybody's trying to look for the secret on how to get huge, whether it's like PEDs or, you know, tribulus terrestis, you know,
Yeah.
testosterone boosters or some
Hmm.
kind of anti-protein. And I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, it's all about diet, training, and recovery. That is all you need. If you're eating in a caloric surplus with 1 gram per pound of protein, body weight, great marker, plenty of protein, enough carbs to fuel your volume loads, and eating a wide array of micronutrient dense whole foods,
Hmm.
you're gonna grow. And then make sure you're, of course, sleeping 8 or 9 hours a night. Have that structured, periodized training, and then ultimately you're gonna see growth over time, way faster than people just looking for the next supplement.
Right. Yeah.
These 3 pillars have to be in line with what you're doing in order to not only grow muscle in the beginning, but these supplements that you're adding onto that are just icing on the cake.
Right.
They're going to amplify what you're doing correctly already, which is also the same story with gear or anabolic steroids.
Yeah.
Testosterone use. If you're not eating, if you're not sleeping,
Mhm.
and not recovering properly, then these steroids and all these different drugs aren't going to make you grow. You need to take care of your foundation first.
Yeah, I feel like that is a big part of it, and there's a huge amount of variables that come into all that, because you just said, the sleeping, the diet, which the macros, micros, and all that kind of stuff. And then as far as with the steroids too, the genetic factor, that comes into that. There's plenty of people that could take steroids and train probably fairly good, but they're only going to get to a certain point, and I don't think a lot of people understand that either. Yeah. And then when you look at people like, an Arnold Schwarzenegger or like a Ronnie Coleman or something like that, those people not only did the diet, not only, well, maybe to some degree, but the genetics, and they had that sickening mindset that not everybody has too. Yeah. That's like a huge thing.
That's true. And these anabolic steroids that people call strength athletes or bodybuilders cheaters aren't some magical.
They had to put in a lot of work.
Yeah, they do, but they're not just like this magical thing that just makes
instantly. It's not synthol, like where that makes it look big. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's not oil.
But the thing is, the way these compounds work is that they accelerate the processes that are already happening in the body. So it's going to accelerate protein synthesis. It's going to increase satellite cell proliferation, red blood cell count, growth hormone, and IGF-1. These are all processes of the anabolic matrix that ultimately aggregate together to make you grow.
Right.
And so that comes back to my earlier point of you have to have your foundation in line. Training, your diet, and your recovery, and everything else is just going to amplify these processes.
Yeah, because if that's not already happening, you're going to have an issue.
Exactly.
In terms of your results and stuff like that. As far as that, like the performance enhancing and stuff like that, I know a lot of young people probably interested in that and stuff too.
Oh yeah, always looking for the shortcut.
Yeah. So as far as that, because there's a lot of people that do, and they're open about it. Like take for instance, like Larry Wills, who is very open about his use and stuff, and
he's a genetic specimen, man.
And dude's a monster. So, but yeah, as far as like doing it and kids that want to do it, like it's one of those things. Like I would say wait until you're older for one, and then do a lot of research and actually put time and work in the gym probably beforehand doing
exactly it. And the thing is, you would most likely end up even larger and getting more out of your cycle if you built a foundation first and maybe not necessarily maximize your genetic potential, but definitely stray away from your base of where you started, your stock body. So
yeah. I see what you're saying, because if you could already get into a primed, like shreddy form, and then you start, and then you're probably going to just get better results. It's going to take that to that next edge or whatever.
Exactly. you know what? I'm not against anybody that wants to use anabolics or performance enhancing drugs. A lot of the guys that I look up to obviously use, and there's plenty of people that are always going to use no matter what. And part of the point of sports is to push the human envelope to what is physiologically possible in the human body. And you know what? If someone, whether it's creatine, increasing your sodium intake, or injecting yourself with anabolic steroids, I want to see further and further of what the human body is capable of. And that's all I care about. I just want to see tremendous feats of strength.
Of course.
Speed, output and power, you know, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
I hate on somebody, you know?
Yeah, it is amazing. And it's what we perpetuate too, because I mean, in terms of like, you know, baseball, when that whole thing went on, they started hitting homers like crazy. Like, everyone loved it. And that's the irony though about it, when they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then they find out what's going on and they're like, this is terrible, even though you were the one who perpetuated it all along, because you started watching more when all the crazy stuff happened, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. It is an issue though. I find it an issue if you get into the point where, you know, people aren't as upfront about it. And I feel like people should know that yeah, there's going to be people that are just going to be lying to you. You know, they'll be out there and they'll be like super big and they'll be like, hey, you can just like work out, and no, I don't take drugs. And then just, you are my customer for life now, you know, because they're basically just a version of what those magazines used to be. Right. You know what I mean? Because everyone now is on IG, so insert whatever buff dude that, you know, does use but lies about it, and then just feeds that to young dudes, and they're never gonna find the answer if they don't understand that the answer is also steroids plus all the stuff that you mentioned and all that other kind of stuff. And that person's probably going to have a customer for quite some time, you know, unless they do their research and find people like yourself or, you know, many other people. Because now that is a good thing with the internet, is that a lot of people are getting exposed. And then there's also a lot of people that are putting good information out there to where it's available for people if they do a little bit of research, tiny bit, you know?
Right. And if you optimize your diet, training, and your recovery, especially when you're a noob, you can get newbie gains and you can grow just as fast, if not faster, than someone seasoned on steroids. You'd be amazed at how quickly you can make progress as soon as you fix the kink, and you're only as strong as your weakest link. So if your diet's messed up and you fix your diet, you're going to see
big improvements. Yeah, huge.
Yeah, you're getting closer and closer to optimizing everything you can.
If you weren't in powerlifting, do you have any other thing that would interest you in terms of athletics or any sort of like active craft, so to speak, if you could think about it?
Well, I played soccer for about 5 years when I was younger, before high school. But then I got into football, and then I wrestled a little bit in high school.
Okay.
And so I don't really know what particular sport I could join other than like CrossFit or like some kind of running or something.
No, anything. What would you see yourself like for me, I would love, if I never did the gym, like training type stuff, I would like jiu-jitsu. I would have no issue doing some sort of like fighting thing, you know.
It would definitely be a likely candidate,
you know.
Yeah, I have a couple buddies that are into MMA, and they actually know some people in the UFC, which is
that's cool. Yeah, because I like the methodology of it, and like just the kind of respect that everyone has for their craft, you know what I mean? And it's like, hey, you start here and you really have to put in the work to get to these levels, and it's like a big moment when you move, you know, from belt to belt or whatever, and just putting that stuff in seems cool. And even like people like it is kind of funny how, you know, people like Dr. Mike Israetel, they gravitated towards that too, and actually a few other guys that are lifters, you know, in the community.
Chad Wesley Smith is
him. That's who I was thinking of.
A power lifter that's taken up jiu-jitsu, and he's leaned out considerably, and still maintains a lot of his strength. And he's doing he puts out extremely valuable content. Very well respected guy. As a matter of fact, he coached me for a short time back when I was pretty deep into researching the scientific principles of strength training, really trying to figure out what it took, what laws of
the body
needs to be met? What criteria needs to be met in order to grow and actually show a lot about how to train as well?
That's cool. Yeah, and him and what's the other guy, the Natty Professor dude?
Natty Professor.
Yeah. He's also a dude that rolls and stuff. He's pretty jacked. I'm like, dang.
When I think of Natty Professor, I'm thinking of like Jeff Nippert or something.
Oh yeah, Jeff Nippert. That guy. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
Do you think he's natural?
I don't. I guess he looks. And he's pretty short, dude. He's pretty short.
Is he?
He is pretty short.
Does that change the fact?
I don't. What as far as what?
Well, if he's pretty short, would that
he just looks like
between muscle mass and
like I'm not sure. Just he looks like he's in this tiny body that's like, but. And then there's certain pictures where if it's not like optimal, you're like, I guess it could be natural. I just don't know. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those. There's a lot of people too that are like on the fence. Have you seen those like the videos where they're like, is this guy natural? Is he not? And it's the dudes that are like
that. I see a lot of those videos. If you
and they're not like the big guys. You know what I mean? They're like they still kind of look normal, but they maybe took some Anavar or they take Anavar on a regular basis. You know, like something really light. You know?
Yeah, I find it more apparent that you can tell whether someone is using or not if it's a female. Typically, they get these.
Oh, the capped.
And then the traps come in, and then back muscles of the erectors and the rhomboids start popping out all big. And you're like, man, girl, you must really know what you're doing. Hey.
What? So wait, for Nipper, do you think he is? Like, you're pretty confident, or you're not sure?
Normally, I give people the benefit of the doubt because back when I was a little bit more ignorant towards training, I'd be like, man, I'm trying so freaking hard. Why am I not seeing these results?
Oh yeah,
because
you're not using.
Been dieting correctly. You haven't been structuring, programming correctly. You have to be more honest.
Yeah.
With yourself, how you're performing, and it's entirely possible that natural bodybuilders can get down to 10%, 9% body fat and still maintain muscle, and then grow after that. You know, it's not. Yeah. It's not possible. It's certainly possible.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah, I'll say for the benefit of the doubt, he's natural. But with a guy that's so popular, with having all these viewers and all that, I wouldn't be surprised if he was trying to dabble in some kind of way to enhance his look or his performance or his growth. The only start that wide attention, and you want to, continue escalating that image.
He is pretty science based though too. That's the only other piece that pulls me back. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, he's really science based. If he was who he is without any of the science stuff, I'd be like, yeah, he's probably using like,
Well, when we look at Dr. Mike Israetel, he's extremely sciencey.
True.
And, he uses gear as well.
Yeah.
Not means as a crutch, but it's amplifying what he's doing correctly already.
Right.
That's key. The foundation comes first.
Yeah, that dude's got a crazy physique. him and Feather, dude. I'm like, jeez.
Yeah, I like Jared Feather a lot too.
They look like aminals. Hey, what I'm talking about? So do you, man. You freaking look like an animal, but hey, you put in on all that work, so that's cool. As far as goals and stuff, are you have anything coming up? Are you looking to compete at any point once all this blows over, or what's coming up?
I definitely have plans to compete. And some people push me towards bodybuilding, but I've always had a heart in powerlifting. I've always wanted to be really strong. And I fell in love with like the whole power building aspect of both trying to get big and strong. So ultimately, I'll do a bodybuilding show one day, maybe once. And, I don't plan to, get first or anything. I'll do my best, but I'll just do it just for fun, just to
get it on the board. Yeah.
And then powerlifting, I certainly have aspirations to get really strong and try to pull some pretty big numbers. But as far as the quarantine goes, obviously, I've lost a good bit of work capacity and muscle. My gym here in Grand Forks, North Dakota, where I'm stationed for the Air Force currently, my gym has opened on Monday, squatted, benched the next day. Wednesday was a rest day. Today's a rest day, Friday. But I kind of, with life, you kind of have to ride the wave. And
Yeah,
what I
that's
mean
true.
by that is that if you don't have a choice to go to the gym, obviously you're probably not really going to be able to get big. You're not going to be able to provide a
Yeah.
stimulus that's in enough magnitude to bring about a hypertrophic response. And so with me having a choice of either maintaining or trying to lean out, I ended up choosing to lean out, and I've maybe lost I'm on a pretty aggressive diet, and I've maybe lost like 8 to 10 pounds of fat,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little bit, probably
Yeah.
2 pounds per week or so, just about. And so I'm not super worried about losing muscle mass. I hate losing muscle mass as much as the next guy, but
Yeah.
ultimately it comes back. And muscle memory is a very real thing that we've discovered in the literature. There's something called myonuclear donation,
Mm-hmm.
in which you gain more nuclei within the muscle cell, particularly when it expands and grows to a certain threshold. It's going to need some nuclei donated to continue expanding that muscle.
Right.
And when these muscle fibers shrink, they keep the same number of muscle nuclei that you have gained after you've grown.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the mechanism in which those gains that you had once before come back a lot easier than building new muscle entirely,
Right.
to where you haven't had that muscle before. So
it's a good thing. Yeah. So it's a good thing.
I'm going to be leaning out, try to get to 10% body fat. I'm at realistically maybe 14% right now. And I'll have another about 3 or 4 weeks to go. And then I'll have a maintenance phase, to let my body know and set, have the new body fat set point. And then after that, I'll begin going on an aggressive mass, maybe probably 8 months of massing. Mass for a little bit, maintain, mass for a little bit, maintain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That'd be cool. Well, if you're gonna be in Cali, dude, I'll probably be able to be there for your first meet and everything.
Hell yeah, that'd be awesome.
That'd be sick. That'd be sweet. That'd be super cool. All right, so people that are like so new, because like my whole thing that I figured out, like I grew up a nerd, so I'm like I played video games, like I knew that culture. I still play video games, well, not as much, but I still have a love for it and that community. So I didn't play football, dude. Like I'm not kidding. Like for the most part, I just didn't do much in high school, and then I went and I was like, hey, the gym exists. Cool.
Yep.
So now I feel like it's a good potential, because I feel like there's a lot of guys and gals that are, maybe on the games a whole lot. Once they kind of flip that switch, they can realize that they're kind of similar, except you're getting the benefits in real life.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like you're making that you are your character. You know what I mean? You just got to grind in and go put in the work at the gym. You'll actualize them, So what do you, any just advice for people that are kind of like interested in fitness and getting at like where to start? Because like you said, we just went through a whole lot of video, a whole lot of material, and it could be overwhelming. So where does someone even just start the journey?
So if I had to give any advice as far as that goes, I would probably look into the works. To start, Dr. Mike Israetel, Jared Feather, maybe Steve Hall in his podcast, Revive Stronger. They interview Mike Israetel a lot, and they go over the scientific principles of training, bodybuilding, and answer a lot of questions that common people would ask. So there's a high carryover into learning new things that you typically want to know. But for me personally, if I were to try to help someone out to grow, first I would come back to the diet, the training, and the recovery modalities, explain each one. And then a lot of people seem to struggle with training the most. And so, sure, we can just diet and we can eat enough protein, be in a caloric surplus. Okay. We can sleep for 8 to 9 hours a night. Okay. But people often don't know how to program effectively.
Yeah.
So if we begin looking into specificity, overload, fatigue management, SRA, stimulus recovery adaptation, variation, and phase potentiation, that's going to give you a massive leg up on everybody else around you. So there is actually a series on YouTube that goes over these principles under the Renaissance Periodization YouTube account, and it's called Powerlifting Priorities, or Raw Powerlifting Priorities, or something close to that of nature. And it's for powerlifting, but it easily parallels bodybuilding as well.
Oh, okay, cool.
All you would have to do is, as far as the specificity goes, instead of training at your 1 rep max and using variations of the bench press, close grip, incline, etc., you would your specific goal would be to get stronger on a 10 rep max, because that's what facilitates size and volume and work capacity. So you just swap those for reps that would be higher.
Makes sense.
A bench day, a squat day, and a deadlift day, and then your assistance work after. And I mentioned those big 3 lifts because, especially for a beginner, it's going to bring about the greatest changes, physiological changes, at the fastest rate. So you're going to get a better return on investment, biggest bang for your buck.
Okay.
Doing that stimulates a lot of muscle fibers, attacks a lot of muscles at once. It's very homeostatically disrupting, and therefore it's going to bring about
what you're looking for, basically.
Yeah, massive adaptive changes that you're going to be looking for, and it's going to give you a great solid foundation.
Yeah.
To work from.
So that's
There's
really
so many benefits to lifting, because we see, a lot of people see weightlifting as, oh, you're just getting bigger muscles. Oh, it's your ego, this and that. But people don't realize that it increases bone density, so it can fight osteoporosis. It increases tendon, ligament, connective tissue, tensile strength. So your tendons and ligaments and joints aren't going to grow as fast as a muscle, but they do grow. They do adapt to these loads.
Yeah.
And, increased coordination whenever you're trying to lift something, your body can recruit these individual muscle fibers because it's used to being stimulated in this particular motor pattern in your squat or deadlift when you pick something up. There's increased nutrition partitioning. So nutrition partitioning is, let's say you're eating a caloric surplus, you're trying to build muscle mass. The surplus of calories that is above your maintenance baseline, which is thrown up in the air for either stored fat or built muscle, your nutrition partitioning is going to become better, and your insulin sensitivity is going to increase, and the surplus of calories are going to be tilted,
lean more over.
For muscle repair.
That makes sense.
Glycogen storage.
Okay.
So there's also that. You get to eat more.
Yeah. And that's a good thing. That is a good
more
thing.
without worrying,
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that weightlifting is extremely good for the brain and production of neurotransmitters, and it's been shown to help prevent Alzheimer's and dementia. So it's great for older people, and that can bridge into when old people deadlift and squat. We have to understand that the body is regenerative, not degenerative.
Degenerative, right.
And so when you, granted with the correct load, with the correct volume and stimulus, older people can tremendously benefit, because it will do all those things that I've just mentioned, especially with increasing bone density and tendon and ligament strength and connective tissue strength. And you see these powerlifters, these older powerlifters, 70, 80 years old, on Facebook or YouTube, and they're deadlifting like
a good amount of weight,
400, 500 pounds for a 1 rep max, and then you see them walking away as if they're like 30 years old,
Yeah, easy.
That's how you keep yourself out of a walker. The body is regenerative in that sense.
Right.
So if you keep it strong, you have good form, you handle loads that are appropriate for you and your age, then it can bring about a lot of positive benefits. It's the fountain of youth, and that also stems into hormone production and
for sure
increased posture. If you have back problems, and you slouch a lot and you start doing deadlifts, those muscles back there will begin to hypertrophy and strengthen, get more tight, and you'll naturally walk around with better posture, which leads to reduced inflammation and reduced pain. Some people have back problems and stuff like that. It's just tremendously helpful in regenerating the body. You're literally becoming more durable. You're less prone to injury. You're literally a tougher being. That's extremely beneficial to have.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think I remember seeing too where they did studies on people that were runners, you know, that continued to run like moderately, you know, throughout their life, not anything super crazy. And then they showed, you know, x-rays and stuff, and people that if you basically, it comes down to if you don't use it, you're going to lose it, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Very.
So that's the idea, you know, just staying active and all that, you know, is a huge thing. And that's why I'm like, doesn't, like, I've always wondered that, you know what I mean? When I started in law enforcement when I was 22, and you get there, and obviously there's plenty of people that are in law enforcement that are, you know, overweight and all that kind of stuff. And they'll say, they're like, oh, just wait, you know, you're going to get fat or whatever. And I'm like, sure, okay, like maybe right now I'm like overweight in the sense of where I want to be. I'm not necessarily fat. Like I'm definitely able like to do my job in the way that I supposed to be able to. But I'm talking like ridiculous. And then I'm like, well, no, like, because I'm gonna still be active. I'm like, you're fat because you don't do anything. Like, there's a big difference. That's gonna happen if you just sit in one spot, you know. But yeah, it's a matter of staying active.
I love the older crowd. I just want to say I love the older crowd, and when they say, "Oh, wait till you get to my age and your metabolism starts slowing down, you're gonna get out of shape and fat like me," it's like, dude, no. If you have any idea of how the body works or how we don't have to be out of shape.
Right. You're like, here, look at Stan.
Aside from that,
look at Stan Efferding real quick, and let me explain him. But I mean, granted, they'd be like, oh yes, they'd be like, oh, steroids, but that's from years of just hardcore training and him being consistent and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, that dude, when I show people that, because he's over 50 now, right? Like he's in his 50s.
I believe he's 53, I think.
Yeah. It's impressive, man.
Yeah, another funny thing that I always hear people ask me, they're like, all right, you lift. Do you do cardio? And I'm like, are you asking me if I do cardio, or are you asking me if I run?
Yeah.
That's the thing, because weightlifting, especially when you're doing these big, massive compound exercises, and someone has never done a 20 rep squat at 60% of your 1 rep max, by the end of that squat, you're going to be coming out of there as if you just ran a mile in 6 minutes or something. You're just panting. The pure oxygen demand of your muscles is making you breathe so hard.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a different stimulus on its own. It's like a different method of cardio than just steady distance running. There's a very high oxygen demand.
I remember that too in tech school when they were like, run, and you were like, no.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
This running is going to kill my gains. It's going to interfere with my hypertrophy training, which is true, but I was just
using that. Yeah. No, I get it. I was like, I don't want to run either. That's funny. Okay, so outside of fitness, anything in and what else catches your interest? Do you play video games? Do you have any guilty pleasures outside of it? Are you watching Tiger King? What else in the zeitgeist are you looking into?
Tiger King is hilarious.
Right.
But he's so funny. I find like several.
I see those people. I
just laugh my ass off.
Yeah, I work with those people, so I'm like, yeah. I mean, because there's plenty of people. Trust me, there's plenty of people that you can make a show about that is like fascinating. You know what I mean? You're like, how is it possible, man? But yeah,
it's your own TV show. But yeah, I have go ahead.
No, it's just a thing, man. It's just what happens. People are just fascinating, dude. Like, especially, I've seen people eat their own feces and like do weird stuff, like the weirdest things, man. And you're like, when you see it firsthand, you're like, how? Because it's just so out of what the normal thing to see in a day-to-day is. You know what I mean? It really goes outside the bounds of what, is normal. So it's interesting to see it. But so that's what I think. Humans are fascinating. But yeah, what were you gonna say?
There are some things that I dabble into a little bit. So I feel like sometimes I look into some pretty unconventional things, and other things are a little bit more mainstream. But I really like technology, AI, the potential of what is possible in the future through AI and technology. So Elon Musk, for example, with Neuralink, Elon Musk is such an amazing human being.
That dude's crazy, man. I've watched like some of his
race, but
yeah.
Have you heard of Neuralink?
Yeah, the thing that you could put on there and you can control stuff. I haven't done a lot of research on it, but
well, yeah, he's trying to
tap into the
implant. He put an implant into your skull that's hooked up to your brain.
And
so he says that in a sense we're already cyborgs because we have this piece of technology in our hand that we use as an interface with the internet or the Internet of Things. All of this, the vastness of human information in the palm of your hand, you know. But with that, there is a data rate or a bandwidth issue. And so every time you want to look something up or figure something out, you got to pull up your phone, open the browser, type in this, and that, and then
restriction.
Go in, read the whole article. That's a data rate issue. And so with Neuralink, the potential with Neuralink is just exponential. So the data rate is going to be significantly exponentially higher. So if I wanted to, for example, look at where something is at, like a Walmart in San Antonio, Texas,
right,
I will instantly know all of the roads to turn, all the highways, the numbers of the exits, anything.
Right.
You know, I can merely look at some kind of service truck outside, look at the company name, and know everything about the company, where it's located, what it does, who the CEO is, just within a fraction of a second. And that's you gotta kind of use your imagination and realize what the implications of what's truly possible with this technology. You know, you can find out anything and it connects you to all these different people, and you can communicate instantaneously with multiple people, and you just have the world's wealth of knowledge within, you know, your brain, and it's all accessible instantaneous. You can find out anything you want. Yeah,
it is going to be interesting. And I remember on the other podcast that he did with Joe the first time, they were saying something about how that's going to be a way for us to still be competitive with AI in a way, you know, to be able to be, because they're saying like if we don't regulate AI in some way, that's going to cause a lot of issues, you know. And then he was talking about us molding together with it, you know, and all that. Yeah, and I'm like, well, I mean, that makes sense in a way, but yeah, it'll be really interesting, especially I feel like in our lifetime, because I mean, just based off what we were talking about, like I want to go out at 103. That's my age that I want to get to, is 103. It's a very specific age. But that I don't know. I'm just like, it'd be dope to make it to 100 just in general, and then 3 is my favorite number. So I was like, I got to make it to 103.
Right on.
And then I'm like, if I'm alive until then, dude, like we're gonna see some crazy shit. Like some crazy shit.
Definitely.
You know, like really crazy. Because I mean, even if you think about it, like what you just mentioned, like the internet and all this stuff, like for the most part, dude, like it's still in an infancy stage. It's not even that old stuff, the way that we use it now. You know what I mean? Like we've only just been this connected for not that long, you know? And then you're seeing someone like these different companies and with, you know, Elon and what he's doing, like he made a car company, dude, and there hasn't been another car manufacturer in like how many years?
Right, that's true.
You know what I mean? Like it's freaking ridiculous, dude, ridiculous. But yeah, it's crazy stuff. It'll be fun to see. Oh, hey, what do you think about for the Teslas, the Cybertruck? Do you think that one's good, or? What do you think of
The
it?
first time I saw the truck, I immediately thought PlayStation 1 graphics. Like, why
Yeah,
is
yeah,
this truck this way? I feel like if I had one, it would maybe grow on me a little bit.
yeah.
It's certainly an eye turner whenever you go and drive that. But I would like something a little bit less boxy and a little bit more
Yeah.
aesthetic.
I think the
Ultimately,
only
I feel like if I did own one, it might grow on me.
Yeah, I think the only thing, like, terms of design, I'm like, I know it looks goofy. Like, I'm not saying it's beautiful. I know that, you know? Like, but buying it, I'm like, it's definitely a fuck you to the industry. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, because it literally it represents, like, no, like, we're like the way that you guys all did everything for the last how many ever years. Fuck that. Why? Because it's really efficient, you know, in terms of the efficiency, you know, and being able to mass produce all those things and stuff. Because if it's just one, it's a fairly few pieces of metal that, you know, it's going to be easy to mass produce and all that stuff. So in the name of science, in the name of efficiency, he's like, fuck you guys. I'm like, that's pretty cool. You know what I mean? It's pretty funny.
Yeah, and it's gonna save our environment too. You know, we're not gonna pollute as much and all that good stuff too. So
Yeah.
really good. And it's super fast. You know.
Yeah.
Tesla, you're gonna beat anybody, nearly anybody, with a souped up car next to you. Like, oh,
Yeah, for sure. For the most part, you're good. Yeah, my buddy has the performance one that's like 3.2 seconds, and I'm like, it's nuts.
Oh yeah, yep. So on base, I work with several different contractors, and one is an L3.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he has the Model 3, and he took me for a ride. And
Dude, that thing's crazy. You're like,
me never being in a Tesla before, and it just like the acceleration and the silence and just
it's nuts.
like taking off in like some kind of jet. It's just
Yeah.
so instantaneous.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. It's a weird feeling, but it's super cool.
It is crazy.
Like, I want one now.
Yeah, for sure. I do too. Start saving up.
There's no maintenance that has to be done on it either. Well, an annual battery inspection.
Yeah, it's easy stuff. Well, I think that's it for a lot of the fitness stuff that we got for today. Do you have anything else, anything that you want to shout out? Obviously, I'm going to link your Instagram and all that kind of stuff in the description. So for sure, but anything else that you want to say before we get out of here?
Well, if you want to do something, and if you want that something bad enough, you're going to get it. If you don't get it, you don't want it bad enough.
I 100% agree with that, without a doubt. That is very true. It is.
You can succeed. Be calm, be confident, be cheerful throughout life. Don't worry about how you're going to get there. Just have a goal, and then the universe is going to align itself with your intent, and you will succeed in whatever it is that you want to do. Promise.
Perfect. And with that, thank you for watching Between the Sets. We talked about a bunch of stuff. And yeah, this is actually the stuff that comes up between the sets, especially if you work out with this guy. He will bring up face potentiation 100%. So thanks for listening. We appreciate it. If you guys like this content, oh yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for coming, and we'll talk. And hopefully this is you know, the first of many things in the future, especially with you moving to Cali, dude. I'm so pumped.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. Perfect
I'm so
weather,
pumped.
beach. Let's do it.
Yeah, for sure. So if you guys like this kind of content, consider subscribing. I'm going to do a few more interviews and stuff throughout the future. I'm just going to be asking random people. So let me know what you want us to talk about, and then we'll bring it to you. So thanks again. Bye.